Hello, everyone. Who is excited? Please pop a little emoji in the chat or not emojis, use some emojis. Yes, we are excited. We're very excited. This is the best part of the week, always with us. So, hi everyone. I'm Sasha. I'm the head of I'm not head of marketing. That's Kat. I'm head of community here at Hubble, and we love doing these fireside chats just as a way to kind of bring you guys all together, really showcase our experts, and just have the best conversations. Really help you guys go from 0 to 1 in building whatever that is. So today we are talking all about MVPs, which, who here is building an MVP? Would love to see in the chat who, is currently building one, who has built one, who is currently burning theirs down and rebuilding it. Let us know. And these are just a way for you guys to really get to know one another, really for you guys to get to know our experts, and just hopefully answer some questions. How this will run, we'll do a few minutes of introductions. Kevin's going to tell us a little story about the Hubble MVP. He is the MVP, but he's also talking about the MVP. And then we'll get to talking about some questions, and then we'll do some Q&As at the end. You can pop your questions as we go along, but then we'll do the kind of questions at the end. We'll maybe pop some in if they're fitting, but let's do this. So Kevin, I'm going to pop it over to you while I keep letting some people in.
I love it. Thank you so much. First of all, welcome everybody. Kudos to everyone for showing up here today. You guys could be anywhere in the world, and you guys are here choosing to learn to get better. And today's going to be fun. I think one thing to remember, it's one thing to launch a product. Like anybody can launch a product or an app. It's a completely different thing to launch something that people actually love, they pay for, they tell their friends about, they come back to. And that's at the end of the day, really what we're trying to do. Another thing also to remember for anyone who's tried to launch an MVP before or a product, I've actually never seen the first version of a founder's product ever actually work. If you've ever tried to launch something for the very first time, it almost never goes as planned ever. So if you've tried to do that, you're not alone. This happens to everybody. The first little story about Hubble's first version. So about a year ago today, we came up with the idea. We spent 3 months putting this thing together. We had 25 experts ready to go and ready to launch. We launched in what's called a cohort, just a group of people. And the one thing, especially that I was clear about, is hey, if anything, we need to make sure these book buttons work, right? So people are going to announce, hey, I'm on Hubble taking these calls. The book button has to work. So we double checked it, triple checked it. The day of the launch comes, we launch, everyone's writing on their LinkedIn, hey, I'm on Hubble now, here's my booking link. And then you guys guessed it, all the booking buttons weren't working. So people are starting to write comments on people's walls, hey, I'm trying to book with you, why can't I book? And this is just a story, even though I've been a part of probably 12 first product launches, stuff never goes as planned. So if you ever are going to launch something, or if you launched an MVP and it hasn't worked and it hasn't gone according to plan, welcome to the club. Anyone who's tried to build a product before, they've been in those shoes. This is it's a hard stage. So you're trying to build something, you're trying to find product market fit, and it's not an easy place to be, but I think this is also why this topic is so important. And kudos to the experts that we have on the call today for taking the time to want to be here, talk about their experiences. They've launched successful products before. Some have flopped, some haven't. And this is a safe space. Ask questions. You're not supposed to have it all figured out. We're all on a journey. We're all trying to figure this stuff out together. And with that, pass it back to Sasha. It's really good to see everybody.
Amazing. Thanks, Kev. I would love to know also who here is building a product business, put a 1 in the chat. And if you are building just a software sort of tech business, put a 2 in the chat, just to kind of see, okay, we have some product. Also hardware. If you're in hardware, you can kind of put that in with 1. Awesome. So you have a good mix. Okay, perfect. I always love asking that, so we can also kind of tailor those questions to you guys. So to kick it all off, we're just going to throw that big question there of what actually is an MVP? Take it away, experts.
I mean, I guess I'll kick things off here. I actually think about an MVP as three different things. I think most people just think about an MVP as a product. And what is that product MVP? What is the technical product that we are building? Something that we can get a minimum viable product out that ideally we get it out as quickly as possible. We let typically for me as I'm building on MVP, there's some type of like bug tester group where I do have some folks kind of like testing bugs, but I think about it from a product standpoint. I think about it from an acquisition standpoint and a launch standpoint. Obviously, product is an MVP. I actually think the acquisition strategy is another MVP, and then the launch strategy is also an MVP. Although acquisition and launch aren't like technological products, I think you have to treat them as there needs to be a minimum viable product of how you acquire folks, and then also how you launch the actual product. I can definitely dive into a number of different things there, but I will just say, like, right now, building a product is probably not probably, it is the simplest time in the history of humankind to launch a product. All of us could get our brains together, have a hackathon over the weekend, and create a product and actually like put it out for people to use it. And so where I am as someone, and I'll tell you more about me in a second, but being able to think about how you acquire users is how you break away from the noise. I just saw a company called Death Clock launch. I don't really love the product, but it's called Death Clock. And if you answer a couple questions, it'll tell you the date that you will die. That's their acquisition strategy. That is a part of their MVP. And don't get me wrong, just me saying that, you guys are probably looking up the website right now, being like, I want to know when I want to see what it's like. That is their MVP acquisition tool. And to me, that is a big important part of how you separate from the noise of just like launching a product. But with that, I think it's three different things. I'll pass it over to everyone else because I know we're at the beginning of this conversation.
Is that guy's name Gary Brecka?
He probably is involved.
Well, that's he's been all over YouTube. I followed him for years. He's doing that. He does that. He did it in the insurance industry.
Yep.
Cool. Why don't I just jump in as well and maybe take a sort of slightly more theoretical approach from which we can then get a bit more practical. But if we're thinking about what an MVP is, well, I suppose the purpose of a business ultimately is to turn an idea into a product which people will actually buy. And an MVP, in the way I see it, is really the second stage of that discovery stage. You've done that first stage, which is going out, speaking to as many people as possible, not hiding, not sending people NDAs, and eliciting feedback. But this point, this second stage is where you begin testing, and your initial proposition is naturally littered with assumptions. Well, yeah, life is littered with assumptions. Look at financial models and how much they can be confused, as it were. So the MVP begins to test those assumptions, but you need to do so, and I would argue, quite an ordered way. So it's testing in order to disprove or prove your fundamental assumptions, particularly whether the problem you think you have is actually a problem that others have, and whether others would be willing to spend money on a solution to that problem. But it's also testing how, measuring how customers respond to your potential proposition. And part of that process is learning at what point you pivot or persevere. Because as Kevin said earlier on, I mean, very rarely is your initial proposition or your initial thought process correct. An MVP is there to evolve. And the best MVPs, I would argue, I don't know whether CK or Drew would agree, are really designed to be wrong, but they're designed to be wrong quickly. I don't know whether you guys would agree with that. Just try to.
I agree 100% with Sam, and that's what I was going to say. So the dividing line between your first concept and MVP is when there are actually other people using your product, paying money, right? Because yeah, I think most founders start by building what they would like to use. Because like initially when you're starting out, like where does the idea come from? It comes from you, right? So you're like building out, hey, this is something I totally use, and with vibe coding and a lot of these powerful tools, anybody can build these tools. Oh, this is something I can use. But that's called like maybe hobby or weekend project, not exactly MVP in my opinion. So the moment it becomes MVP is when other people look at the product and, oh, this is something I can totally use and I'd like to use it. So I think that's the dividing line between your weekend project and MVP.
That's really interesting. How would you determine? And I realized we got so excited that we forgot to do introductions. So we will do that in the next round as you guys answer the question. Say who you are and what you're doing. Got too excited. That's my bad. How would you distinguish between when to do a free MVP and kind of put something out there just to test, and then when's that moment to start collecting dollars? And what does it mean for an MVP to start collecting, money in the bank? CK, I'm going to pass it over to you since,
Yeah, I can
yeah,
I
love
can go
that.
I can go first. And by the way, I'm CK and I'm based in Los Angeles. I'm on Hubble, so you guys can find me on Hubble. Amazing, amazing product, amazing platform. And I'm a serial founder. I'm onto my third company called Saywise. We're still super early, but basically Saywise helps you just chat with AI for like a few minutes, and then it's going to produce very personalized content for you. So we're targeted for founders, marketers, anybody who wants to create more professional content on social media, but looking for help. So going back to your question, when do you want to start charging money? I think like day one. That's the trend. I think things are different now. So like I said, this is my third company, and my first company was back in like you guys probably remember like Web 2.0 some time ago. And the second company was in mobile space, and I think the mantra there was, hey, just get to the eyeball, get the eyeballs, and monetization will follow. So like grow it at all costs and then just like, forget about monetization until later, just get the users was the thing. But now it's like the true, because there's so many products out there, right? Until and unless somebody is willing to pay for the product, you're not really there. So I think the trend now is monetize from day one. I think that's the trend, and that's what we're trying to do here with my new product as well. But yeah, let me turn it over to Drew and Sam to see if they have different thoughts.
Yeah, I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Drew Glover. I am co-founder of Fiat Growth. We are, say, one of the leading fintech-focused growth marketing consultancies out here in the U.S. We also run a venture fund. We have around $80 million under management, writing $1 million checks into early stage fintech businesses. I've started multiple businesses before, sold businesses. I've failed at businesses, more failures than wins. But I also like to build fast and fail fast. In terms of like when to start charging, this varies very much if I'm building a B2B business or a B2C business. Typically, if I'm building a B2C business, I will take a little bit more of a guarded approach, because from a direct to consumer business, as a founder, my ideas typically come from my own brain, and I've like validated them and become pretty biased. And so for a lot of times, I'm actually like looking to bring on like a very small set of like bug testers, but also just like testers of the product, because I kind of need a multitude of additional points of view to kind of tell me why I'm wrong, or what could be better. Because a lot of times from a B2C perspective, I'm just like so in my own world with whoever I'm building with, then all of a sudden like I become the voice of the people, where I need actual people to tell me I'm not that. From a B2B perspective, I've typically figured out, something that, through working in that industry, that I see as a huge problem. And that is because I've seen so many people engage with it. So I used to work in the HR tech space. I saw a lot of issues within the HR technology. And I got to see that by being an individual contributor at one of those businesses. So I got to see it over a multitude of years. When I build a B2B business, I typically know, because I've had so many years of feedback from different folks that I've engaged with, that I know that once that product is built, I can start selling it immediately. And so just so you know, like very much dependent on the business model that you're leaning into in terms of how you approach, both testing the product, but also, how quickly you want to monetize on it.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up a thread really quickly is there's like two questions I saw in the chat that I want to kind of pick up on. Is one is like, what would be a small beta test from both, if you were to do a product, a physical product, and also, a software. And then the second part of that is when you are shipping an MVP and you're getting it paid and it's like the first time it's launching, how do you kind of communicate with customers knowing that it's going to be a little bit broken, things are not going to work, and really start to communicate that so people aren't, upset that their money's being wasted.
Yeah, I can share my thoughts. So I think there's no like an absolute number of, hey, you should talk to like 5 people, versus like 10 people. I don't think that's the what matters. What matters the most is you being able to speak to enough people so that you can find the pattern there. So you shouldn't like, talk to one person and then just think, oh, like because that person said this, therefore we have to build product this way, which is something that you should also not do. So rather try to talk to as many people as possible. But then what you do is try to catch that pattern because you're talking to X number of unrelated people. And if all these unrelated people are saying the same thing, then obviously, that's something that you have to pay attention to. The other thing I want to emphasize is when you ask the questions, and of course, like as founders, we have our own social circles, and we start from just like we're building something that we want to use. You're talking to your friends or people, connections, right? And watch out for like telling your solution first, and then hey, what do you think about this? Because most people will say, oh, that's the best idea in the world, because they want to maintain the friendship, but that's really bad way. Um, so rather, what you do is you try to learn what people do in their life. So rather than like saying the solutions first, try to understand the problem. You guys probably saw this, read this book. It's called The Mom Test. So if there's one thing you take away from this meeting, like you can forget about everything else I said, but the mom test is something that you should read. It's a very thin book. Maybe you can finish it in 30 minutes or like an hour, but really, really great book. Again, the whole point being, hey, you have to be open-ended, try to understand their life first rather than like jumping into the conclusion and then ask them what they think about the conclusion and solution.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things to say to that. Firstly, I think that your friends can be pretty sycophantic and kind to you. I mean, mine aren't kind to me, but very, very often friends tend to be quite generous to their friends. And as a result, they're probably the wrong focus group to speak to. And it is all about patterns of behavior. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you go about asking the entire world the same questions. It means that you can actually be very, very specific about who you whole, as it were. So focusing on a certain demographic, knowing that perhaps they're people that are affected by the problem.
Oh, I'm sorry. Someone is off mute. Zizi, I think you are off mute. Can you find them?
And so those people so you focus on a much smaller group because those people actually may define a big enough market from which to build your product. We're looking at Hubble. I was just playing around with the Hubble site. I mean, it is in some respects a very advanced MVP because it's not the defined product. And if you're going back and thinking about other businesses who have evolved from an early stage, the Revolut founders basically strangulated their growth to an extent by having a sign-up sessions in a physical building. So rather than immediately, this is the early stage, rather than immediately being uploaded onto their system, as it were, they were using that as a good opportunity to extract information and data from users in order to pick up patterns. And those are methodologies that should be deployed in lots of different ways for MVPs.
Yeah, I would just also add that it's really important in the MVP stage to really understand the different personas that you're building for and the folks that you want using your product. And like there's some very like simple strategies and exercises you can do of like, one thing that I'll do a lot of times is, if I'm building this for single moms that are making $60,000 a year, I'm saying to myself, great, I'm going to name them. This persona is called Single Sally. And I'm literally going to like write out an entire one page of like, who is this person that I'm trying to get in front of? And maybe there's 4 or 5 different personas, but it's a really good exercise as you build a product, as you're looking to launch it, as you're looking for bug testers, build out the specific personas that you built for. And so as you are looking to have people test it or sell to, you can have a really focused approach. To me, the way you lose quickly is having a really serious lack of focus in terms of how you want to get your product out to folks. So locking in the focused areas that you want to get people in front of the most. It's very, 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 it's very smart, and also at the same time will set you up for success. So you're not just being like, oh, this person's my friend, therefore they should be they should be the first person I sell to.
Can I pose a question to the others, actually? Do you think scientists are better at building MVPs than guys that read history or English? Because I would argue that maybe they are, because actually those people are really quite good at actually defining an experiment, at being able to. We were trying to get an argument, guys, amongst us, but we've seemed to have consensus. But actually, those guys, people who've done scientists, are quite good, probably defining experiments and actually getting rid of all the other noise, paring the question down to the bone, in order to get simple answers to simple questions, which then help them to tick that off and then move on to the next variable. So I would argue maybe there's actually scientists are better, but it may be a distraction.
I mean, I have a son who is applying to college and he's a non-STEM major, so I would be rooting for my son. So like I will take the hot take, the opposite case. Like you said, English major, his major is in history. But anyway, so I actually wanted to add something really quick for the previous thread. So Sam, you mentioned some of your friends may not be as friendly as jokingly, but I think that's the best thing in the world. Just have friends who want to tell you the truth, like speak their mind. And the reason the and something that I like to do sometimes is just like doing this pro bono, completely uncalled for product reviews for my founder friends. As founders, we have a lot of founder friends in our circle, right? So sometimes because like what I want to do is to get enough like friend groups or like connections that can really provide this unvarnished product feedback to me when we launch new features. And how do we make sure about that? It's you have to take the first step and then you have to actually reach out to your founder connections and then, hey, like I use the product and here's my feedback. And you don't have to be like an asshole, like, for the sake of it. It's like, oh, like this is really stupid idea. You don't have to say that, but be very specific, right? It's like, hey, overall, I think this is really great, but then this specific part of the UI was really I didn't know about that, or like I got stuck at this part, specific part. So you guys want to change that, or messaging was really off. So by being very specific, they appreciate because that means that you have put in the effort and time. And when you have enough credit, by doing so, with the people around you, founders around you, when you guys launch an important feature or new product, then you have enough people to reach out to. Hey, we just launched this. Can you provide a very unvarnished feedback? I think that's something we can try as founders.
No, 100%. I'm a beta tester for quite a few different companies right now, and it's so much fun being able to just sit down and, tear through the product and then seeing, the impact and seeing them actually build out, certain features. It's a really cool feeling. When looking at, what actually I'm gonna touch on one more thread before kind of switching a little bit, but how can a founder share, early stage MVP that, may have some bugs, maybe a little bit broken? How do they do that to a group and then charge? What's that conversation like? What should they lead with? And how can they, really get the good feedback while also getting people to pay for the product from day one?
I think you be very upfront about what's coming, and where does the product stand today, right? So like as MVP, obviously things are broken. There'll be a lot of holes, and I think what you do as founder is just be very transparent about it. Hey guys, like this is where we're standing, and then like some of the features that we're working on will be X, Y, Z, and even though we cannot guarantee these are like short-term upcoming features. So just by sharing a little bit of short-term roadmap, some people might be like, oh, I don't know about this product as it stands today, but since I can maybe very much use this other feature that they're launching next month or in 2 months, so I maybe like stick around and see what happens. So I think what you do is, yeah, just transparent communication.
Yeah, I would. Again, very much depends on the model. I tend to play in the gray area of marketing a little bit here when it comes to my product, and so I'm just going to live in the world where we're talking about a direct to consumer, call it like mobile app around like entertainment or something. If I'm really, and I think Kevin said something really interesting early on, like you have to understand the entire journey of your product, the user journey of your product, and what is that one thing that just cannot fail. And if you really, really lock that part that in, that makes it so it provides a level of delight to the experience. What I'm doing is I'm not giving any, hey, like we're trying to figure this out. There's a bug. There could be bugs. I want your feedback. I'm literally going to 50 different influencers, micro influencers, people that have like 2,000 to 5,000 followers. I'm paying them some money and I'm saying, hey, I'll give you a commission for everything you sell, but you have to like create content. And I'm actually going to have other people selling my product on their platforms. And to me, as long as we meet the minimum viable product of that, and like there is the surprise and delight and knowing that there are going to be fixes over time, and yeah, maybe I'll come out with the pricing being a little bit lower than it normally would be. I'm going to try to find a way to get as many people on there as possible, because the ultimate goal for me is I want to know if people like my stuff enough to pay for it. And what it would probably be is some type of like monthly subscription thing where like I'll see what the drop off is after 30 days. If someone spends $5 to use my app and they drop off after 30 days, then like I'll know. And I'll know that in my brain, what I'm delivering them is something that is worth $5. I'm not in this business to screw people over, but I'm definitely in this business where we live in a world of mobile apps where people are paying a lot of money for a lot of shitty things. And I know what shitty is and I know what good is. And, I wouldn't put anything out there that isn't good or great, but I do think it's important to know that you can find ways for other people to tell your story that'll make it feel as if something that like, it's their idea. It's something that they're organically engaging with and partaking in. On the B2B side, I'm basically just saying, hey, I'm looking for design partners. I'm giving you a significant discount on this product. You're a design partner. You're telling me everything that's wrong with it. After 6 months, maybe it's transitioning into this full-time cost of the product. But I'm just looking for bigger brands that will validate what I'm building to basically engage with me on like a design partner pilot type of engagement.
Yeah. Sam, do you have anything to add? Good. Perfect. We'll move into what are some of the biggest mistakes that teams are making when trying to build an MVP. We've touched on a few things, but how are also, well, yeah, we'll do that and I have a follow-up question for that. But what are some of the biggest mistakes? I'll pass to Drew.
Biggest mistakes in an MVP?
Yeah.
Number one is thinking that you as the founder or you as the founding team knows everything and not getting feedback from everyone else, and thinking that this is what happens a lot of times when you're creating a business. You're solving a problem that you've encountered, and the assumption that your problem is everyone else's problem is like the biggest mistake you can make. Beyond that, it's actually I think that would be the number one thing.
Yeah, I'll just I'll jump in there too. I would say it's too many features. It's trying to thinking big, thinking about too many different things, trying to add everything in, and you end up just with a spaghetti bolognese that's with carbonara that has everything's in there, and actually doesn't quite know actually which market it is, or a restaurant, for instance, that is an Italian restaurant but also sells Chinese food and does all this too much. And it also means that you can't do the testing properly because all the factors are mixed up. So too many features, I would say. A. B. I'd say almost too much polish. So developers in particular, obsessing over some of the UI elements potentially, making things look a bit too shiny. That's great, but great for a later stage in the development process. And and what it means is you're probably wasting your time doing something which you should be doing tomorrow rather than something you should be doing today and yesterday. So I'd say it probably also represents a lack of discipline to an investor. So yeah, I would say those two things are the sort of most important things. I would add one more thing. I'd say potentially measuring the wrong thing. So it's potentially measuring signups, but not actually usage. How often have people come back and used the product that you put to them? Or how many times have people seen a demo but not actually used it? So it's looking at measuring things in different ways. Potentially also maybe confusing speed with progress. Thinking, oh, we've moved something really quickly, or we've moved on a certain amount. Yeah, but actually, have you tested those assumptions you initially had? So those are sort of the biggest mistakes I would say from afar.
Yeah, certainly too many features, and related problem with that is communication. So it's like, you gotta just like tell people, hey, what exactly is this? I mean, it's a really simple question, but it's really hard to answer, right? So how do you like come up with this like one-liner, very succinct, describing the product? And if people are confused about what your product does, so like yeah, some of that can be actually coming from too many features, having too many features, right? Because when you have 7 different features and try to come up with like this overarching like general statement, then it's not as sharp. So yeah, generally, if you're in the MVP stage, you want to focus on just one thing that your product does better than everything else.
How do you
CK,
start coming? Oh, go for it.
sorry, yeah, CK, I love what you said about communications. I think that is super key. And sorry, just Sam, just to go back to one thing you said that I think is really important. And this, I see this happen a lot more for B2B businesses, but you get a really large enterprise like pilot or design partner, and that pilot, because there's such a huge potential opportunity, they start giving you feedback about your product, and you just start adding features because they say they need features. And what ultimately happens is you built a product for one client instead of building a product for the entire market. And I've seen so many companies just completely fail because they're like, oh, like Microsoft is in a pilot, therefore let's just build a product for Microsoft, and everything falls apart at the end of the day.
Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree with that. And it's a huge opportunity cost.
Yeah, that and also like referencing, meaning like, as founders, we always study the market and then we look at other products as references, right? And then we're like, hey, try to take some cues from there and then take a page out of their playbook. Problem is, a lot of the reference that you're looking at is they've been around for years. So they're a lot more advanced. So yeah, one of the mistakes that I certainly made was to look at other companies in the market that have been around for years and then try to think that, oh, like we should like, maybe copy that or like take a page out of them. That was one of the mistakes I think I made.
Going back on the feedback, what feedback should you listen to? Because obviously, when you're designing an MVP and you're putting it out there, everyone has something to say and everyone wants to give their opinion. So how do you balance obviously taking feedback on, but then also not be going into a tug of war of like adding features, getting rid of features based on what people around you are saying? So how do you kind of funnel down and have that laser focus of here's what I'm actually listening to?
I would go back to what CK said earlier on. It's patterns of behavior, but it's patterns of behavior if you've established that the pattern is from a market which is big enough to justify further investment to scale.
I would also say I think this is a testament to like what a good and a okay, good and great founder is. Like you really need to be able to put your foot down on certain pieces of feedback. And it just takes a level of confidence, I think experience, and also, as CK said earlier, just like having other founders around you that you can like lean on to ask certain questions. Because again, like if you're just a first time founder, you've never done it before, and you have the CHRO of some massive Fortune 500 company giving you feedback, your initial thought is, well, this person knows more than me. Let me just like find a way to incorporate it. And so you just need to really understand what you're building, who you are building for, going back to those personas that we were talking about earlier, and making sure that they're not pulling you away from the focus of your goal.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm maybe it's a good time to introduce myself here because it'll make more sense now. I'm Sam Merullo, exited founder, and also we've started a venture fund, early stage venture fund. I'm based in London. But one of the points that you've just touched upon is a really important one, and it's about what really does an investor look for in an MVP. And I think there's two different purposes for an MVP as I see it. It's that internal one. It's testing utility of the MVP, testing the sort of the worthiness of the business, whether it's going to go, and iterating on the basis of that. The second element is really its use as a prototype. It's being able to showcase the future as well, probably slightly later stage. Obviously, one follows the other. You showcase the prototype to future investors. And investors are really looking at three different things, I would argue. The first is the founders, the second is the problem, the third is the solution. I mean, we can go into that forever, but just on the founder point, the most attractive thing to any investor in any country is a founder's ability to both focus and iterate. You're basically looking for someone who is agile enough to the market, that is able to develop the product in different ways to suit today's problem and tomorrow's problem. So that agility, that sort of ability to listen is critically important and listen to data. Combined with the ability to execute. Actually, someone has been data gathered. Now they've got the data. Now they're going to execute and iterate and develop it that way. So what an investor is particularly looking for is how has the product evolved on the basis of the findings that the founder has got. That suddenly becomes a really interesting proposition to investors. And it's not necessarily about tech competence, it's about that ability to move. So we have this constant tension with MVPs about speed. We want to move quickly. We want to move quickly. Yeah, but you want to go quickly once you've ticked all the boxes. And then the question is, but what boxes are to tick? And when do we move? And that's the problem that everybody has with an MVP. And the problem is there's no right or wrong answer to when is the point to move. But the important thing is that an investor, when looking at the prototype, is not actually looking for perfection at all. It's looking for something that potentially has bugs, fine, because he knows that with his investment or their investment, they can solve those bugs. But they are looking for the founder's ability to execute. So an MVP has to, in some ways, be a prototype that has the ability to ignite the imagination of an investor. And some investors are pretty unimaginative. So actually being able to put in front of them something which is they can play with or see is really important. And then the third point from what an investor is looking for is discipline. If they're looking at a founder who has been iterating for 2 years or 3 years and actually spend a lot of time, and time is money, and potentially money, then the question rises, can this founder use our investment wisely, or will they just throw money around and time around? And that becomes more of a problem. So those are the sort of things that I think that an investor really is looking for in an MVP. It's tracking back to how the MVP has got to this point. And those are questions that you'd expect an investor to ask. And of course, what an investor really wants to hear is, I had a problem. It was a problem that I knew existed for myself. I then built something to solve that problem. But in building an MVP, I learned that actually there's a bigger problem that other people have that I sort of have too. And I have pivoted the business in order to solve that problem. And the numbers are with X users to X users, retention rate of this. That suddenly becomes a really compelling story from an investor perspective.
What do you think is most important? User acquisition or retention?
I mean, you don't have retention until you've acquired. So you've got to acquire first, and then start thinking about retention. Otherwise, you've got a tool, and a tool that people don't see don't see that much value in long term. But question.
Yeah, man. I
Yeah.
mean,
So,
go ahead,
go
CK.
ahead,
You got
please.
it. You go.
I
You
was
got
gonna
it.
say, speaking of the investors and MVP, I think one thing is very important. One thing that's very important for the founders is to put things in the right perspective. Because if there's one thing investors are really great at, they're really great at remembering other companies' big numbers. So it's like, like Hicksfield just reached $200 million ARR, and how come your company hasn't reached that? So it's like, so like they're really great at like remembering big numbers, and the bar has generally become a lot higher these days. Tools are more powerful. AI tools are really, really like, and teams have this playbook, which is really shared and YC, and there's a lot of the resources available. So everyone is moving at the speed of light. So the bar is much, much higher. So what you do is you got to put things in the right perspective. Let's say, hey, your company just reached like $20,000 MRR. And if you just say, hey, like we reached $20,000 MRR, what does it mean, right? I mean, there's so many different factors involved in here. I mean, did you get $20,000 from one customer, or is it like, how was the trajectory, and how are other companies in your space doing? Like if all of them are like doing $200 MRR and then you're like $20,000, then like you're way ahead. So like there's so many different factors involved in here, and I think like painting the whole picture and then putting things in the right perspective is really important thing.
How would this
Yeah.
apply for hardware or like a product-based business in
I'm
terms
not in
of
Yeah, I
hardware,
in
mean,
so
terms of
anybody.
MVPs? Yeah, in terms of MVPs and like what an investor is really going to be looking for when it comes to a physical product versus like SaaS or software.
Well, I mean, physical products are obviously take a lot more time and a lot more money to build, and the testing is much harder. So how do you go about testing without spending shit tons of money and losing a decade? And it's a hard question to answer. So you need to test by other means. You can test through, I think, videos, explainers, um, um, stuff like that, that is posing, establishing whether the problem is there. I think you can also, I imagine car companies, and I know nothing about car companies. Car companies, they start off with a car at a motor show, and all the journalists are writing up the car, but actually the car has no engine in it. They have no idea that this car is going to be able to drive, let alone, reverse, let alone accelerate. But ultimately, they're teasing the future developments to others and testing the market response to it. And the same thing can apply to other more physical businesses. But you need to have some sort of physical prototype. If not, you need to have graphics that really excite the imagination of others and prove the problem point.
yeah. I would agree. I think from one thing about a physical product is it absolutely has to work when you go to market with it. Like it just has to. And so let's just state that first. Secondarily, I think there's a multitude of different ways that you can get the product out there to test out like people's excitement around it. You can set up a number of different landing pages on different ways to sell it to get people to sign up for wait lists. I mean, you saw Tesla do it before, where people were paying $5,000 to just get in line for a Tesla. I'm not saying you do that with your product, but you can do these things, and you can set up different ways to get your product out there. And so I think from a physical product standpoint, to Sam's point, you basically want to find a way to do really cheap tests and fail really really fast to get to a really great product that works. Because the last thing you want to do is have to go raise, 500,000 to a couple $1 million just to get a minimum viable product out there that people can actually use. And so I would also say, like, generally in the market today from physical product, you're seeing more like exclusivity based launches where it's like, we are launching this to 100 people versus, hey, this is just like commercially available to everyone. So you don't find yourself, ordering 50,000 SKUs of something and then being risking yourself of having it all sitting in your living room for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I want to go back to a couple other things that just to touch on real quick. As it pertains to a VC, I think you are good as long as you have a product that like they are interested in. The most important thing is you need to have a say to do ratio that is always at 100%. Like as a VC, I'm talking to founders for 3 months, 6 months, a year sometimes. And the people that I ultimately invest in that I've had a long relationship with are the ones that every single time I meet with them again. Everything they said they were going to do in the last meeting, they've done. And as long as you can consistently do that over time, that conversation and relationship will blossom. I promise you. Like as long as they are generally interested in what you're building. And then last but not least, even to go back to the physical product piece, and you talked earlier, or you asked the question, Sasha, about customers or like acquiring customers versus retention. I have like a very, 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 very kind of like militant thought on here. Like I'm about creating acquisition funnels up front that are so sticky that I know people will walk through the front door. And so I actually obsess more about how do I make it so the product itself, once they get through the front door, they never ever want to leave my house. And so Again, like you talk about like that company Death Clock. I spoke to a company the other day. It was wild. They said our product is one where if you sign up, we will automatically sign you up for every class action lawsuit in America, and you instantly have to connect your account to Plaid, because 90% of the people that sign up will get anywhere from $10 to thousands of dollars. And our whole goal is we're going to create a fintech product on the back of this. I did not invest in them. I think that there could be a predatory element to it. Very interesting. They were getting 15,000 downloads a week. Super.com just hit $200 million in ARR. Their front door, for you to walk into the front door of Super, it all comes from people that are looking to travel. If you looked up, I want to go fly to LA from Oakland, it would show up and it would say, hey, if you sign up for this flight through Super, your $100 flight will now be $50, but you have to sign up for a $10 a month subscription to our financial Super app. But they're finding these really interesting front doors that actually have nothing to do with their product. Super.com is not a travel product, but they know that every customer they want is someone that can afford a flight and someone that probably has enough money for them to help manage their money. The last example I'll say is Delta Airlines. They make 3% margin on all their flights. 70% of their revenue comes from their credit card. Technically, them doing flights is their acquisition tool for people to sign up for their credit card, right? Like Delta Airlines is a fintech business. It is not an airline, but they have created such a sticky front door that like people don't even know that like their whole goal is how do you sign up for their Delta Reserve card or whatever it may be.
That is so
I,
interesting. Yeah, Brett, I'm with you. My mind is blown now.
I just gotta, fascinating, really interesting, cool. Just gotta jump back slightly. If a founder has done exactly what they said they would do every time, then I worry that they are not thinking outside of the box enough or listening enough to the data. But I totally see your point. I totally see your point. But it does completely disagree with the statements or the
Yeah,
argument
the,
I
the
made
the the
previously.
ratio the ratio doesn't have to be one only, right? So like do over say, it can't be like 120%, 150%.
No,
But
no, I
it's a
don't
bit
get me
it's a
wrong.
bit
That's not.
I know.
Go ahead. Go
I
ahead,
hear
Sam.
it's a bit like a founder that says, "Listen, I've written this business plan, and look, I've stuck to it completely." And they look so proud, and you look so worried that actually they're building a business for 2 years ago and not being agile enough.
No, yeah. By the way, if you just do what you say you do every time, it does not mean I will invest in you, but you have a higher likelihood of me investing in you.
I love that. I'm going to ask one last final question, then we'll open it up to a Q&A. Um, it was, can you share an example of an MVP that you launched that failed, but that still led to a success?
Yeah, I have a fun one, I guess. It was right before the pandemic, and me and a buddy of mine, we were avid Airbnb goers. That's where we'd like stay. We'd stay at Airbnbs whenever, we were doing any type of business travel. And we realized that every single Airbnb host like always left something out for us. And Airbnb was just on the rise. And so we decided to create something called Welcome Box, and it was basically and so our idea is there was a number of different businesses that were built on the backs of basically just taking people's like sample product and like getting it out there. There was a company called Birchbox that did something very similar for like fashion. um, so what we did is we reached out to a ton of different like large businesses that were in the consumer space, and we'd say, hey, send us all of your samples and we're going to create these boxes, and then we're going to sell them to Airbnb hosts. And we're going to sell them to Airbnb hosts, and they're going to buy them for over $5 a box and just leave them out for everybody that comes and stays at their Airbnbs. We thought this was like the greatest idea ever. We were like, this isn't $1 billion idea, but it's definitely like a multi-million-dollar idea. Let's rock and roll here. And so we launched. It was great. We were like selling like hotcakes, and then boom, the pandemic hit. Literally 6 months after we launched. Nobody was staying at Airbnbs. Airbnb, I truly today have no idea how they stayed alive during the pandemic. But one thing that we saw in the market was instantly every single business was trying to find ways to engage with their employees that were no longer coming into the office. So we instantly shifted and said, hey, we are actually an employee like retention and an employee to like community building tool. And so basically we reached out to businesses and said, hey, like birthdays, we asked them, said, hey, send us all your information around birthdays, t-shirt sizes, everything they had in their like HRIS system, all the way down to you know, Christmas, Halloween, everything. And we'd say, we're going to like look at your entire employee and event calendar, and we're going to create these like boxes that we can send everyone. And so we ultimately switched our business into this employee retention business. And we ultimately sold the business for like, it was like an $800,000 purchase. It was nothing crazy, but like for something that we thought was absolutely fucking dead in the water, excuse my language, we were lucky enough to kind of transition it into something that fit the market. And yes, I saw someone write Unreasonable Hospitality. Absolutely love that book. Read it. Kevin and I talk about that often, but that's a small potatoes example of just like, listen, sometimes you got to listen to the market. I do not like these, like shifting businesses like that, but we were forced, and it turned out to be okay.
I got a really quick one. Obviously, I did not found it, but certainly anecdotally, from what I understand, Instagram, it started off as a clunky app with plans, photographs, social features, etc. And users were pretty overwhelmed. But they did learn one thing, and that was that people were, in the age of Facebook, actually quite interested in sort of curated photographs. And what they particularly liked were filters. So they pared right down to bone and built the Instagram, or at least scaled the Instagram that we know today.
I think also Uber as well, right? Like Uber's first version was probably, but like, I think the lesson there is even for a very simple, so people talk about this all the time, they were like limousine service, blah, blah, blah. But then even for their small service, in order for it to work, the entire stack, had to be working. If they didn't have a driver fetching system, it probably wouldn't have worked. Even the simplest version, the payment, if the payment didn't work, the whole thing probably crumbled down. So I guess that can be another lesson for MVP. Your surface area can be really small, but in order for it to work, you still have to get the entire stack working, just like the Uber V1. And by the way, very quick story, personal story about Uber. So I was in Paris in 2008. I was at a conference, and then it snowed, and like when it snows like a half an inch in Paris, the entire city stops for some
You
reason,
haven't you
and
haven't
like people
tried
were.
London yet. You haven't tried London yet. That is paralysis. But
And people were like complaining the whole time. And then so this was when iPhone first came out. And then, we had these people who were saying, oh, and the cars were like all stuck on the road. So like somebody was like, hey, we all have the phones. What if we are able to like call these cars? I mean, all these cars are like, one person only in there. So what if we can call the cars? And so like we literally talked about it. And a few years later, when Travis came out, and then like somebody was asking, "Hey, how did you come up with the idea for Uber?" And he was like, "Oh, in 2008 in Paris." So I was like, "Okay." Like some people do, like some people only talk about the idea, but then some people
That's
actually go
cool.
ahead and build it. So
I do like the fact that like Uber has a couple things in the user journey where like if they got that right 100% of the time, it was going to be like the best. Like I'll never forget, like the thing I always loved most about Uber was the fact that I could get out of the car and close the door, not speak to the driver, and the payment was completed. Like payment of a taxi back in the day was just like the worst thing on earth. And that was like to me like the the gold standard feature of the entire Uber experience, which that's something that they got 100% of the time at the very beginning. There were a lot of bugs in their early product.
right.
I love it. I love the unreasonable hospitality. I was like yes, big fan. I'm gonna open up for questions. We're gonna, how this is gonna work to kind of prevent things from going for 5 hours is I have the list of questions that people have been asking in the chat. I'm gonna read the question, call the name, and then you guys can come off mute like 1 minute to add a little bit of context, and then, another minute and a half or something for the answer. As always, if you want to continue the conversation, you can book all of these experts on Hubble. But one of the big ones, we obviously have a lot of hardware people, a lot of electrical sort of engineer sort of types of, yeah, electrical hardware. And so these can take, you know, thousands of dollars to make and months and months and months to build. So how would you get investment? And this is from William. William, if you want to come off mute, if you are still here, if not, then they can just answer the question. You guys can just go ahead. But how do you get investment for something that's more electronic hardware?
I'll just quickly say one big mistake that's made often is people are just like, oh, like, can you just introduce me to VCs when it's time for me to go raise money? Like, I would say first and foremost, go do your homework. The amount of people that try to pitch me on products that, like, if they just did the slight bit of homework on me to know that I do not invest in these types of products is so important. And, you know, for someone that's looking to invest in, you know, appliance software, like, I guarantee that list of VCs is like not the biggest. And like, you could probably find a list of like the top 15 pretty quickly. So my first piece of advice is just simply do your homework, find that list, and make sure you're not wasting time pitching and spending hours on VCs that would never invest in your product. Two is aligned with that. The people that are investing in this are people that need to have invested in it hundreds of times before to be able to see the upside of it. Like, I only invest in fintech because I've been obsessed with fintech for the last 2 decades. And so so again, it all comes back to just like homework and making sure you get really focused on who you're actually pitching to.
What do you need in terms of an MVP when it comes to something like an electronic hardware or like, you know, an Aura Ring or a Whoop or something that is a bit more complicated?
I mean, I sort of touched it.
I've come off mute if you want me to.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah,
You're still here. Yeah, could you go off mute and kind of do the 1 minute?
So I'll give you the 1 minute. It's hyper technical, and I'm deeply embedded in it. It's deterministic networking for industrial use, which is normally described as industrial IoT or autonomous robotics, where the hardware and the radio is still elementary. It works, but the difficulty is to build an MVP literally costs thousands to make, and building the software, firmware, hardware, and the rest of it has taken us so far about 4 years to get to the point where we have working prototypes, not even a working MVP. And as you say, find investors that are in this area. Virtually every investor has migrated to SaaS or apps because you can iterate those incredibly quickly. To give you a clue, whilst I've been on this call, I've rewritten somebody's website and it's taken me half an hour. It's literally child's play. I'm talking about what we're building it doesn't exist in the world. If it or when we release it, it will be worth a huge amount of money. But investors keep going, but it's got a hardware element and they're out.
William, who's your end user? Who would you be selling to?
The end user would be somebody like Ubiquity Robotics, ABB, Siemens.
And what happens when you approach them and suggest a pilot project of some sort?
Well, the difficulty with Siemens and ABB and the rest is because they're enterprise customers. What they see is a proprietary technology. And that's why I've helped build an initiative that we're launching next month, which is a pan-European initiative with ETSI standards. And we're building out a whole forum. We've got Sennheiser, 2 German universities, 2 radio manufacturers already involved in this because they want to push the technology through. So we've all been working independently or kind of at a distance. And
it strikes me that if you manage to effectively put in front of investors some form of heads of terms from industry saying that we know that this is a problem, we think that this is a solution, we are going to invest on these terms in order to have some sort of first rights of something else and help develop the technology along the way, then actually that may be the most attractive. Then suddenly you've got you're ticking both boxes. You're likely to get more institutional investment if you have got industry on your side. Anyway,
I like it.
Yeah, letters of intent are very helpful when going for the more enterprise customers. I'm going to move on to Raquela, and she asked, like, can you expand on how to establish the correct measurements for an MVP and like what a North Star metric should look like?
Sure. I'm building in Femtech right now and launching my MVP soon. And I found it an interesting process to get from discovery calls to minimal products, minimal features. And the thing where I'm getting stuck right now, and I'm curious if anyone can share your experience and how to identify the North Star metric to really solidify the entire process to only get validation. It's just, does this user actually care about this product? And I know it depends on context. So the main feature is to create hyper-personalized notifications around cycle health. So a woman can be notified where she is in her cycle, either preemptively, so she doesn't show up, or something doesn't show up unannounced, and also for performance, just to optimize their performance.
I can share only my own experience because this thing really depends on what you're building and different industries. So I don't think there's any like cookie cutter like a metric that can be applied to every different business. So for us, generally let me talk about my previous company. So my previous company was in kind of like mobile storytelling business. We provided a platform for creators to come on and then kind of like start publishing their stories, like a bite-sized story for mobile users. Similar to like YouTube and Netflix. So Netflix is serialized shows basically, right? So we had to like come up with. So generally, we were going for retention because, as a lot of people mentioned, if you don't have retention, once people come in the door, how many people leave? How many people churn? I mean, that's the most important metric for any business, right? But if we stop there, it's like very simple system. We had to go deeper than that. So we were like, our thesis was, okay, so if people found a piece of content that was interesting enough that they would stick around. So rather than just like measuring, okay, so what is the retention and stop there, you have to go deeper than that. And in order to go deeper than that, you have to have your own thesis, like assumption. It's like, okay, so we're not 100% sure, but our assumption is that people will come to our service and then they will find value here. And then you measure, right? So for us, again, it was serialized storytelling platform. So we were like, okay, if anybody would be able to find at least one content series that they could enjoy, then they would stick around because we were using weekly publishing model. So and then how do we measure if someone likes it or not? So I'm sure like YouTube, Netflix, all the content platforms have similar metrics, but because we didn't have access to their proprietary metrics, we had to come up with one. So we measured, what we call the series velocity. So meaning, hey, how many people who come into the first episode of a series would check out the second one? And then how many of them check out the third one? And usually we would have like a paywall after 3 episodes. And then if people want to read more or consume more, they would pay to convert. So we measure that as well. So, and then we stack ranked all the content series based on that velocity. So, and then we were like featuring, okay, so this one doesn't have a lot of users, readers, but then this one has potential. So we kind of bumped it up in terms of marketing and featuring. So I think the point there is what you do is you think about like an assumption or thesis. Hey, this would be like a model behavior of someone like a user. And then if everything's working right, then people would come in here and do XYZ behaviors and then try to like validate that assumption by measuring the data for each, I guess, step. And sometimes you have to come up with your own metrics, like invent new ones. So that's what we did.
Awesome. Thanks. I appreciate the answer.
And I was a Femtech founder, so I'm always happy to chat because I was doing something very similar to this back in the day. I think we'll have time for one more question, and I think this is going to be a good one for Sam. is around compliance. And I know the big C word. When you are creating an MVP in an area that revolves around like a lot of compliance and just kind of regulatory issues, what are some of the big things to consider, top three things when creating an MVP in a high compliance area?
That's a good question, and maybe my last answer taps into this too. And I think it's having an industry partner of some sort, so someone that feels the pain, has an in-house legal team, etc. I actually I'm helping a business, very good founder. They are building something that sits within legal tech. Um, None of them are lawyers. None of them have done much compliance at all before. They're scrappy startup founders. Um, and I've actually hooked them up with a law firm, and being provided with the in-house support to help them develop technology that considers regulatory issues and all of the and is transparent and good. So industry is one thing. I don't really have much more of an answer beyond that. I think it's you need good advice, because you can have a solution to something, but if the solution isn't legal
Yeah.
or doesn't work and can't be marketed because it doesn't tick all the boxes, then you don't have a solution to anything. So taking good advice, but also, I mean, if the theme is one thing, it's for the whole talk is be wary of developers. Developers will always say that you need to put in more tools and features, etc. Be very wary of that. And the second thing is be wary also of people that are too regulatory focused, too compliance focused, who will suggest that you need to be completely precise about absolutely everything you do. A little bit of scrappiness is allowed, so keep alert to the dangers and pitfalls of being too anal.
I love it. Well, thank you guys so much for doing this and for taking the time to do this MVP workshop and little fireside chat. Thank you guys for staying on. I'm always happy to stay on for about another 5 to 7 minutes to answer any other questions, or if you just want to chat about Hubble, anyone has any questions about what we're doing, I will stay on for about 5 to 10 more minutes at the end of this. But the recording will be sent out in the next couple of days. And yeah, there are some really incredible things, and we will chat. Please connect with everyone. Luke sent out the document. We will put that also in an email, so you guys can see who was on the chat and who was here, and connect with everyone. And we have a lot of fun things coming up. So stay tuned. Stay tuned on all of our LinkedIns. And thank you guys so much. I'll stay on, but Sam, CK, Kevin, thank you guys.
Well,
Thank you so
thank you.
much.
Thank you very much. And I think we're all on
Thanks.
the Hubble platform, so
Yes,
you
if
can
you want to
search for us as well.
continue, the questions, yeah,
All right.
connect with them. And for the new event, for the next events, stay tuned. Make sure you are signed up on our website for the emails and Kevin and I's LinkedIn's.
Yeah.
And thank you, Sasha, for keeping us on our toes as well.
I know, we
Yes,
didn't know where this
appreciate
was going to go. Thank you guys.
Right.
Hey, real
Awesome.
quick,
Thank you.
is Hubble a platform just for venture capital, or eventually do you see it opening up to other areas? Because I told somebody about Hubble who's an expert, like for instance, me. So I'm an expert in the fuel industry. And I thought about this Hubble thing, and I thought, well, maybe I could go on there and I could tell someone what they need to do to buy a gas station, because I'm in the petroleum business. But then I looked at it kind of closely, and it looks like it's just for the VC thing.
It's mostly VC, yeah, it's like investor, VC, operators, things, but it's something to keep in mind. Kevin, I'm not sure if you have anything to add.
Remember when somebody's advice, I forget, I think it was maybe Sam or CK, and I think it's some of the most important advice for anyone building an MVP. It's like, let's do that one thing really, really well, right?
Okay.
Before we start thinking about, could be features, could be domain expertise for different experts. And I think this falls right into it, right? So for us, it's like, we're trying to focus now on tech, venture, startups.
Okay.
We're trying to focus on LinkedIn. We're trying to like make our product even more solid and better. And then over time, why not, right? Because at the end of the day, for us, it's like, anybody who's a dreamer or building something or wanting to change their career, they should be able to talk to someone who's done that thing before. So it
Right.
shouldn't just be limited to those subsets. But in the beginning, in taking this wisdom, and I don't take this lightly. I think it's like the way. You got to get really, really focused. You got to say no to a lot of stuff. Any founder, like we all have big visions. We want to do all kinds of things, but we really have to say no to those things and do a couple things really, really well. Once that's nailed down, we start thinking about how can we expand? How can we do more?
Okay, so this was really good timing for me to have this talk about MVP. I'm in the middle of building an MVP right now, and I started with my startup is kind of wide and varied in the field that it's in, and then I narrowed it way down because on a Hubble call, one of the guys I talked to said, "Hey, can you make this for your industry?" So I have made a demo for my industry, and I have a CEO of a fuel distribution company that wants to see it. So I'm very close to doing some programming. So that's my MVP. And then after I get it working, then I go market it. But I would like to get revenue right now, but I just have to prove it works.
It's
I love
hard.
it.
It's hard to sort of diagnose right now and chat through, but maybe book in a longer time we can chat properly. But
I think this mindset too, like as you launch this, I love this like one little sentence, and I try to tell myself this all the time. We're not trying to be right, we're trying to get it right. So if you just adopt this philosophy with this first MVP and this test that you go through, you're not trying to be perfect. You're not trying to be
yeah,
right. We're just trying to get it right. So there's going to be some iteration, there's going to be some change. And that will also remove this need for you to feel like it has to be perfect. And you can go into these calls with this CEO or the next one, like, hey, we're just here, we're testing something, we're trying to get this right. What do you think about this? And again, then honing in on what is the one thing we can do 10 times better than anything in the market. We don't have to do two things or three things. We just have to do this one thing. And I think that goes back
Great advice.
to even to Raquel's, when you were talking about those notifications. Like I think about notifications on my phone. It's like 90% of them I don't like, but there's a couple that I really do like. When I get that notification, I swipe, I click. And for your product, thinking about like, what are those notifications that women really care about, whether it's weekly, whether it's daily, that genuinely will make them click as soon as they get that notification into your application and spend time there, and then just honing in on that and then doing and focusing that product offering around those one or two notifications.
Very
guys,
good.
thank you so much,
Thank you,
guys.
Sam.
Take
Thank you,
care.
Sam. Thanks,
Bye.
Kevin. I'm happy to stay on for another minute or two for some people if you have any other questions.
I really
But
appreciate it. Thank you.
yeah, of
Does
course.
anybody have any questions for me? It was amazing listening to you guys talk, by the way.
You got a great product, and I'm glad I found out about it.
Thank you.
We're so glad you found us.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, have a great
I got
day.
a question.
Yeah, go for it.
I got a question for Kevin. Continuing on the topic, what was your North Star metric in the very beginning, and has it maintained the same throughout until now?
Yeah, I think it has. I think it's important to figure out the type of business that you have and then pick the right North Star metric for sure. Ours was like focused around impact. And like, how could we measure impact? It was the amount of successful calls that actually happened on the platform. So it was like fairly easy. But if you had a company like Uber, maybe it's like successful trips. Or if you have if you're a platform like Instagram, it's like engagement, time dwelling on the platform. So I think it just depends on the type of product that you have, how often you expect someone to use something, whether you're measuring in a daily active user, if it's a daily habit, or a weekly active user, or something monthly, like, or even longer than that, like an Airbnb thing. But yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but for us, that's what it is.
What was success? What did success look like on a call?
I still think we're getting to the bottom of that. Like, what does true success look like? Does that mean someone books another call? Like, that would be a next like logical step. Does it mean someone leaves a 5-star review? Does it mean someone does both of those things, right? Does it mean someone saves that expert and books again with them? I think like one more thing that's important, like when you launch something, we're less than a year old. We're still trying to figure it out. Like we don't have it all figured out. Every single day, we're trying to get a little bit better, trying to talk to more customers, try to understand their problems a little bit more. And yeah, I think if you plan too far ahead, you can totally miss the boat. We're just trying to take it like a month at a time. But for us, it's about those completed calls and making sure that the impact and the result of those calls was something that was positive.
Cool. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot. We're looking forward to the next call.
Thank you, guys. Any other questions that either Kevin or I can answer for you?
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Thank you all so much, first of all. But I was thinking on the influencer idea. Is there a simple 1, 2, 3 step roadmap that you all can share for how we can expand our minds creatively to reach out to people that can get our products out there? I thought that was absolutely amazing to share the solutions with others.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, go for it,
I
Kevin.
can. I've had like quite a bit. I've launched a bunch of different consumer products. And like, I think when you think about consumer products, you think about distribution and then you think about micro influencers, right? I think it depends on your product. But from my experience, reaching out to people that aren't massive, right? They don't have millions of followers. Those are like super hard to get, but that fit your product offering extremely well. And I think one key is when you start engaging and talking to these micro influencers, if it feels like it's a pain and it feels like pulling teeth for them to use it and adopt it, you either need to like change your product offering or find a new micro influencer. It should feel early on, if you're reaching out to these people and the right people, you should feel some momentum and there should be some level of excitement of them saying, oh, this looks really cool. I would use something like this when it's complete. Let me know when it's available.
Yeah.
That's kind of the vibe that you want. If you start sending this to people with this idea and it's just really not landing and you feel like you're having to do too much selling, I would either pivot to the type of person you're talking to or fix your product offering that solves more of that core problem that person is experiencing.
I think also as someone who has worked with companies as like a micro like influencer is I love getting the outreach of just like someone asking me like, hey, like for example, Nutonic was just like, hey, we're launching this thing. Love for you to try it. And then oftentimes, even with like a few different LinkedIn kind of writing companies that just have, once you use it, you just fall in love with the product. And now I tell all of my friends about certain products, even if I'm not, getting paid for it, or even if I'm not part of their team. It's just natural that when you love something and you love the mission and having a really strong mission and a really strong reason and a really strong why behind it. So for example, not to plug another company, but I have an olive oil company that I just love because of the mission and what they stand for. So whenever my friends ask me like, oh, what oils do you use for your food or for your morning olive oil shot? I will always point them to this. And have just naturally sold, bottles for them. Same thing with my favorite almond milk that I love. I'm just going to cafes, just like talking to them about it. And like they actually reached out at one point. They're like, you need to stop. This is actually hilarious. So when people love the product, even and just like getting them invested in the mission and the vision of it, like, hey, we're doing this thing. We'll have to just like have you try the product. There's no strings attached. As soon as there's strings attached, people start to sense that, and it becomes a bit more transactional versus organic of I just love this company and I want to support them and I want to, propel their mission forward.
Yeah, I love that. And MG, one more thing I'd ask or add to this is like in the very beginning, nobody knows about your product. Nobody cares, right? Like there's a million things going on in the world. You have to be that person that cares. Like you got to be that person that beats your own drum, that talks about why it's special and why it can be special and what it's going to do and how it's going to change the world, right? And any great movement, any great product, any great thing takes time, but it always started with like somebody, one person or a team truly believing. And don't be afraid to shoot out DMs to people on Instagram. And if they don't answer, they don't answer. You go to the next person. But that's just how it's got to start.
Thank y'all.
Have a really strong story. That's like the last thing I'll definitely add for like for any product, especially when it comes to a physical product. Have a really strong story and a really strong, origin story, especially of why you are creating this. And oftentimes, it's from a place of need and really shouting about that. Any other last questions? Whether we have another like 1 minute, Kevin, you can pop off whenever.
I got one more question if someone wants
I'll
to ask.
take it. I'll take the last question.
Do it.
Kevin and Sasha, I couldn't agree more with you on what you just mentioned about micro-influencers, because I'm right on that boat now, because I'm launching a social discovery app for products and services. Like you can call it Reddit for shopping. So, and we are about to ship our alpha next month. So we're taking a leap of faith and not shipping a beta, but even an alpha, because we believe that we should be building with people, right? So when it comes to micro influencers, I would love them to make money with the platform. But at the beginning, we're on a very tight budget when we approach them, right? So what do you think is that one way of making them feel part of that success story that is building up? Because first of all, like any micro influencer I speak to or agency I'm speaking with, I'm telling them that I want them to align with the value of Trenzy, of what we're building first. So I want them to say that, yes, we like it before we even discuss any transactional terms. So there's a very fine line here because those micro influencers are also being hit by hundreds of DMs every single day, right? So there's a what would be your advice here really to make them feel that before thinking about the dollar amount that you can make on the short term, think about how you can get associated to the success story that might get built behind this platform that is launching in next 3 months publicly.
Yeah. You as a founder, you have this, it's the same problem when you're trying to hire new teammates, like them wanting big salaries, but you can't afford it, right? And the way that they join the mission is by having a mission and a vision that's so powerful that they just get excited about it and they're willing to take a bet. From my experience in working with micro influencers, my very first startup I launched, it was an actual discovery app just like this. It was basically like TikTok meets Yelp. It was like a short form video discovery. And I made the mistake of all the new micro influencers that we would adopt, we would pay them per post. So they would go to a location, they would take a video, and we would pay them. And it worked somewhat, but what it ends up doing is it builds this transactional relationship between you and these core early users. And you don't really want it to be that. You want it to be special. You want these early people to want to be a part of the product development and the life of the company. And so what I would just say is, if you were planning on talking to 50, you may need to talk to 500 and just keep talking about that vision, what the world is going to look like when the product is better. And more people may say no than if you just told them, hey, if you do this, I'll give you $100. Everyone will say yes. But long term, you'll have the right people. And when you have the right people on a product like this in the beginning and the right network, that's really what gets momentum going. And people can sense that.
Got it. Thanks, Kevin. Sasha, I saw you got excited while I was like raising the question. So do you have anything to say here that can help?
It depends on the thing. So I know right now it depends on like the business strategy and what you want, how you want it to work. But right now, also a lot of micro influencers are getting they're kind of going into SPVs or going into equity and equity share. And we all know with like Poppy, for example, and Alex Earl, she exited, I don't even know for how many millions and millions and millions of dollars because she asked for equity, not just a classic influencer deal. So it's kind of looking at, how can you get people to buy in without, buying in with cash. And, that could be, I'm not sure, with your circumstance, but it could be your core influencers or your core micro influencers do actually get a little bit of equity. And you kind of look at, can you put aside a couple percentages and you kind of get them excited by doing that, and their success becomes your success. Um,
Yeah.
so that
Yeah,
was
agreed.
that was one thing that I was thinking of. And then again, just making them feel very special and making them feel really excited about saying yes to this. Like, you're an early adopter. Like, there's been products I've like used, I've like off the shelf and they were crap. But because I fell in love with like the founders and like what they were building, like first. But because you fall in love with like the vision and the mission and the people, you're like, I want to stick with this. I want to see this through. And like, I will do anything for you. And so I think, again, it's being so in it with the people, so open, so honest, having those, live calls like this and be like, here's what we're thinking of. What do you think? What would be easiest for you? What would make you feel, that? And actually asking them for input, because no one ever asks people for input. Yeah. I mean, that was my next thing, was unreasonable hospitality, but like getting them really, really excited by, supporting them, promoting them. So there's a lot of things you can do, and also like, happy to chat more about that. But the influencer space is very interesting. And the more you get the micro and the people who are really willing to buy into that, you can go to the moon with them.
Amazing.
Everybody should read this book,
Everyone
Unreasonable
should read it.
Hospitality. It's so good. It's literally like any business, even if your product's not even that good yet, if you've just practiced the principles in this thing, you will earn at least a few months of people's loyalty just because you actually care, right? And it's basically just a book about, please say the title again, Unreasonable Hospitality. I don't know if I spelled it correctly, but I think I did. Unreasonable Hospitality. It's just like the practice of doing the common things in an uncommon way, and they're so special. And it can be about like a welcome email that you send someone that signs up to your product. Sasha wrote handwritten cards to every single one of our experts during the holiday. And she didn't just write like, hey, Kat, thanks a lot. She wrote like literally paragraphs per person that was very
I wrote
personalized.
350 roughly of not only experts, but everyone who's come to an event in person. And yeah, it took time.
Those
But
little things matter. Those are the big
matter.
things. Those are the things early on
Yeah.
that you can actually win. You're not going to be as good as Google or Uber or TikTok at this point, but you can do other things,
It's like, what can
Yeah,
you do
100%.
really well and go and lean into that? Like, what makes you unique? What makes you you? What's that, again, that one thing you can do really, really, really well? What weird connections or network do you have that you can leverage and do something so different that you become known for that thing? And
Yeah.
like for the cards, I have some, but like I in your head, you kind of also want to think about shareability. Is this with everything right now? We're in an age of distribution. So with everything, it's like, how can we make it where if someone were to take a photo of this and put it online, we want it to look nice. And so in my head, I had that in mind, but I didn't really expect anyone to take a photo of it and put it anywhere. It was, it's always there, but it's never the expectation. It's never a transaction. But the amount of experts and, and like learners and people booking calls, our top people who then start, we're posting those on LinkedIn, on Instagram, or we're sending me messages with the photo, just completely increased. And again, that like drove the more people, and it was a huge thing, for a couple of weeks of just everyone that, oh my gosh, I got one too. So yeah, find that one thing and do
I
it
love
well.
it. I love it. Thank you. I'm glad I asked that last question. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for being here. Hopefully that was helpful.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Bye. Thank you,
Bye,
Sasha.
Kev. I can answer one more question, but if anyone has anything else, but bye, Kevin.
Great to see everybody.
I'm happy to stay on and ask, one or two more. Or we can just go and enjoy our whatever day it is. Is it Thursday or Thursday evenings or Thursday days?
Yeah, it's late Thursday here over.
I know.
over
Are
in
you
Europe.
also in the UK?
Yep.
Yeah, me too.
I'm 2 hours ahead in Vilnius. It's minus 15 outside.
You win.
I know. Come on, Luke.
I'm in Toronto and it's freezing.
Oh, Toronto's
Wow.
it's a beautiful
I saw
place.
the snow and I was
It's
like, no, thank you.
hot and
No,
cold,
thank you.
hot and cold. Love it. So yeah, I'm back to grumpy old man here.
No worries, go for it.
It is interesting that uh, I've been around startup space for probably about a decade now, and it is really interesting that finding people talk about tech companies and they immediately assume that means an app, because in my other real life, I'm a member, part of the member advisory board for the ACT App Association, which lobbies governments for legislation to help SMEs, and it's really heavily focused on apps. And I'm also a member of the Royal Academy of Engineering, which focuses wholly on hardware because we're engineers. And we always find it's a real struggle when people talk about technology companies. Far too often, people slip into I'm going to make an app. And because part of what I'm building is it has to have the management console to be able to manage the deterministic network, because no tools exist. Building that, we've kind of stepped into an interesting space of I'm now heavily using AI as development team.
Yeah.
So I have a number of agents that run that I hand off tasks to it, because being old, I'm of the mindset of I write out the specification of what I want, because I'm used to having a team of junior programmers and say, can you build me a function that does this? I'm going to pass you 2 integers, return the sum of those 2 integers. And like, how do I build this? How it works on the inside is great. We'll look at it, check your code later, but can you just build that? So I can have like 4 or 5 agents just going, build me this. So when people talk about apps and going MVPs, Christ, send me $50 and your spec and I'll create it for you. It's literally you can have an MVP the next day.
Yeah. This is kind of why we were talking about this. Yeah, this is why we kind of came up with this idea, was the route to building an MVP is like, you can, I mean, I don't really know how to vibe code. I do need to learn, but I know I can pass an idea off to a friend, as I usually do. And I'm like, hey, I have this idea, could you build it for me? And, they'll build it within 30, 45 minutes, like a rough concept. Yeah, definitely, like with you and like the tech and the hardware, like, or not the hardware, but the what was the word that you used that you need? There was another word that you used with what you need. The best thing is, this is not my area, to be honest, but it's finding champions. And this is, a few people have said this over the last couple of days. So there's something in the air right now, but it's finding, I will always harp on about a letter of intent. This is something when I was building my company and my startup, was when you're looking, especially B2B, and you're looking, for those larger ticket price tags and those, larger enterprise companies, there's something so powerful in a letter of intent saying, hey, this, we know that this is a problem, that we're facing. We love what this product is. And even though, we know that, it requires XYZ, we are now committing XYZ for once it's created. And so when you go into a VC, when you go into, an angel investor who does, invest in like more hardware, more technical things, and also happy to go and help you find people either through Hubble or elsewhere on that. They feel more confident, because there's nothing more scary than, obviously giving a good chunk of change for something that they don't know the upside and whether or not people will buy it, especially if it is something that has not been done before, right? So going and finding companies that they will give you that letter of intent, it actually solves so much of the VC questions. So the ick. It completely solves the ick, because they know, hey, we give you 5 million, whatever, a couple 100,000, you have 5 to 6 companies lined up, ready to go on an enterprise basis.
Yeah, and it's the tricky one, because I spoke to a robotics company out of southern LA, they're sort of around the Anaheim area, And the conversation was quite interesting because I said, I'm building deterministic networking, which will use ROS, which is a robotic operating system, a cut down version. So you'll be able to just plug the module in and it will. And he essentially said, you're talking crazy. When I did my master's, my dissertation was on this. It's like you're telling me you're going to deliver me a unicorn. That's like, no, we've made it.
Then
honestly. And he's like, no, I don't believe you.
show him. Like you,
That's
the thing
the
that
problem.
the thing that I always joke is, you know, if you can't beat them and you can't, or sorry, if you can't join them, don't beat them, but invite them.
Yeah.
Like my favorite story is just like, for my like I couldn't get into VC. Like it was such a hard thing to crack into, even though I came from all the schools, the backgrounds, XYZ. And so I started hosting VC dinners and, you know, founder and investor dinners in London. And soon enough, I have now VCs coming to me. And so it's like when you can't beat them and you can't join them, you have to invite them and you have to build your own table and, you know, kind of showcase, no, fine, I'll build this without you, with or without you. And there will be that one person, and, you know, Kevin will talk a lot about this, about, you know, the amount of no's you have to take to get that one yes, but that one yes will unlock everything else. But that one yes may be the 300th person. And that's the whole thing about being a founder is how many no's can you take to get to that yes? But then also looking at the quality of those no's. Is it a no, not yet? Is it a no, you're crazy? Is it a no, like, no, I don't understand? And looking at the quality of those no's and where you can then improve your pitch, improve what you're saying. Maybe like, I have no idea what you are when you're saying deterministic now. Like, I have no idea what that is.
I'll describe it a different way. Think of it, you're putting something in the mail or you're ordering a package. So you go and order your olive oil and you go, I love my olive oil. I love it. I can't get enough, but I need it before 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Mm-hmm.
That's deterministic.
Okay.
I want it here and I want it then. So we're down to about 10 milliseconds difference of I want this message then. And people say, what does that mean? I said, in the time it takes you to blink, I essentially could have repeated a message across the mesh network about 1 kilometer.
That's pretty cool.
Like, what? And it's wireless.
That's very cool.
So the idea is you could have autonomous robots that can move anywhere, and it builds essentially a 5G mesh network that doesn't need cellular connection. So it can transport all this incredibly quickly, and you can say this is priority, this data is priority. We'll send video clips across here, but this is least priority. So priority routing, all sorts of stuff.
That's really cool.
But it's
I
think I know every expert on the planet on it at the moment, because we had a meeting and there was 12 of us on the call, and that's pretty much everybody who's involved.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I don't have much to say other than wow. Like, that's really cool.
Apart from we're all stupid, and even if we want to talk about the guy from Sennheiser, there's 2 people in the whole business that work on this.
Wow.
Because they think it's a real. Again, they got some funding, and they're like, "You guys, you promised me a unicorn. Great, you're going to probably deliver me some sort of pony. Yeah, good. Go off and
drop a little horn on it. Not drop a little horn on it. I think honestly, is keep shouting about it, keep like connecting, even not with experts on that, but experts in other industries that have also been proven. Like, you know, we're told no, but then they proved yes and proved right. Connecting with just those different industries. I'll have to think and see if there's anyone within like networks on, you know, there is Judah on Hubble, Judah, his last name, but he's like the VP of North America on robot.com. I know it's around something around again that. So
easy. You've got my contact details. You can look on LinkedIn to find out how much of a background I have. So it's not that I'm a young guy that's just left college and gone, I got a great idea.
I
Been
love
around
it.
too long.
No, that's why I love doing these. And so yeah, I think MG, you asked when we do these, we are going to be working on a calendar to have on the website. We're basically do these more like English panel fireside chats once a month. And then I'm going to be starting to do Ask Me Anythings both on my end and then also bring in an expert. And like we did with Kevin, I think in December. So it'll be like an expert for 45 minutes. You can just go in and ask them questions. So if you like, for CK, you can go and ask questions. It's a bit more informal. And then we're wanting to do a lot more in-person things. Obviously, I'm in London, so we are kind of focusing on the London ecosystem right now with events. But then are going to be starting to expand into like, obviously San Fran and like this California area where Kevin is external. So we are working on a few things to make it easier for you to find the events. Toronto, yes, we got to make it out to Canada. Lots of cool things there. But if you ever think of other ideas, yeah, I'm talking to Oxford a little bit in general, but Luke, you and I have a call in a minute as well, so we can discuss. But if you have other ideas or what would make it easier for you guys to find what we're doing, hit me up on LinkedIn in the DMs. I'm always here to chat about how we can make this better and more impactful for you.
Will do. This was awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you guys for spending your time and almost 2 hours. So I'm going to let you guys go. So thank you. Usually we don't do these for 2 hours.
That should be a sign. Like people would be dropping off, and we're all bought in. You know what I mean?
You guys
So
are the
it's a sign.
MVPs. And Backlund, I think that's how I pronounce your name, or Backlund Consulting. It's like 4 a.m. for you. So thank you for being here. I thought
No problem.
Yeah.
I'm initially from France, but I just moved here in Singapore for some events. So basically, yeah.
That's amazing.
3 a.m. So
Yeah, the energy is amazing. I love the energy.
That's what I'm doing today.
Yes.
Let's see why I was hired. I'm kidding.
No, we can.
But truly, yeah, you guys, you have my contact. I'm also on Hubble, so if you want me to actually like tear apart your businesses, help you build community, help you build things, my background's in founder psych and organizational psychology. So anything to do with like product marketing, especially on like the go-to-market strategy, it's my bread and butter. So connect with me on LinkedIn, book with me on Hubble, and we can get into the nitty-gritties as I love to do. But thank you guys so much again for your time. Message me with any feedback as well. We would love, feel free to shoot me a message of how wonderful it was so we can pass it on to the rest of the team and, to promote our events, but pass this along to your friends. Thank you. And with that concludes our first fireside chat of the year.
Amazing. Thank you, Sasha.
Thank you, guys. Lots of love for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all your questions.